Dallas, who is our Rotarian sponsoring our speaker tonight and our current foundation chair. So Chuck, please take over the program.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much. I'm not sure it's working. Whoops. The famous OFF button. Yeah, my wife's here. I'm not going to hear about this forever now. I want to add my personal welcome to everyone here tonight also, not only the members of our Rotary Club, but members from other Rotary clubs around. Percival is here, the Tuesday Morning Daybreak Club, and I think Sterling, Dulles. And we have a number of my Tuesday senior golfers from River Creek are here. We call it geezer golf, and I'm glad to see some of those here, and just everybody that came out tonight. This is a very, very special evening. I recall the very first time that I heard our guest of honor speak. And as he describes in both of the books, Ev has written Chained Eagle, which is the book that we have here tonight. In both the books, he described that day as a unusually cold and blustery August day, and it was in 1982. Happened to be on Veterans Day, and all that week leading up to Veterans Day had been a week-long celebration in Washington by Vietnam veterans for Vietnam veterans. And the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was built primarily by veterans who supported it and raised the money nationwide to have it built. A fellow by the name of Jan Scruggs, you may remember that name, was the impetus for that. One of the ironies of that day is that the president wasn't there. There was no big-name politician there. This was 1982. I was still a little nervous about being associated with Vietnam and with Vietnam vets. So since it was a Vietnam Veterans Memorial built by veterans, the veterans said, we will select the dedication speakers. And the very first speaker the vets chose was one of their own, and it was Ev Alvarez. And I'll never forget it. You wore a white trench coat, and they had the podium up on top of the memorial, and the wind was blowing, and I wasn't dressed for it properly. I was only a child at the time. I kept trying to get up closer and get below the memorial because the wind was blowing. It was a horrible day. Then it was after that I was honored to hear Everett Alvarez speak and hear his words where he included all of us who were in Vietnam, not just the officers and not just the POWs, but his words and his words today talk about everyone's commitment that was involved. A few years later, about several years later, I was in my office at FAA headquarters in Washington, and I was a program manager for military operations, was the liaison between the FAA and Department of Defense. And two of our staffers were Tuskegee Airmen. Our colleagues from Leesburg Rotary met one of them about a year and a half ago here. They came in, they said, there's a guy that you will want to meet, and he's outside. Can you see him? And I said, of course. This gentleman came in, he's not real tall. He was very dignified, very dapperly dressed, and they introduced him to me, and they said it's Fred Cherry. The first thing that came to my mind was Air Force Colonel Fred Cherry, and it was. And Colonel Cherry was the first black pilot shot down over Vietnam, North Vietnam. And he joined Ev as a guest at the Hanoi Hilton for a number of years. And that moment when I met Colonel Cherry, we walked out into the hallway. So I had the two Tuskegee Airmen, Colonel Fred Cherry, and up walked Everett Alvarez, that I had seen and listened and read about. I had read his new book. And it's one of those events where you say, where's the camera? I need a camera for this, to be standing here with two Tuskegee Airmen, Colonel Cherry and Everett Alvarez. I was deeply honored. Let me move ahead because we want to hear from Ev. Let me just mention to you that he is a native of California. He was born in Salinas, south of the Bay Area there, in the agricultural area. He spent a lot of his childhood, though, in Santa Clara. His mom and dad and his maternal grandmother insisted on an education. Was the way to get ahead in life. They didn't have high school educations, but they insisted that Ed and his sisters get an education, and he did. He has got a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Santa Clara. And upon graduation, he told his father, he said, I think I finally made up my mind what I want to do in life. I'm going to enlist in the Navy. And his father looked at him a little bit. He said, you mean you've worked this hard for this long and you want to be a sailor? And he said, no, I want to fly jets. And his father was okay with that then. Ed went through pilot training and found himself on board the USS Constellation in an event called the Tonkin Gulf situation. On August the 4th, 1964, there had been reports of attacks by the North Vietnamese patrol boats on the USS Maddox and the USS Turner Joy. And even to this day, there's some debate about exactly what really took place there. On August the 4th, Ev and two other pilots off of the Constellation, pretty bad weather and all, they were trying to help the surface forces find out exactly where those other boats were and so forth. And Ev dropped flares into the overcast to try and help identify them and so forth. But then the very next day, August 5th, Ed was called again to that President Johnson had made the decision that we were going to attack those harbors that had those boats, those North Vietnamese boats, and Ed was in the lead group. And when they went in low, and he was second behind his lead, there was a lot of flak, and Commander Alvarez got hit, and he was the first pilot to be shot down in the Vietnam War, and thus became the longest held POW in North Vietnam for the war for 8.5 years. It's kind of hard to imagine, as he mentioned in his book, and it's what really brought it to focus for me. World War II was Pearl Harbor to VJ Day. He was in prison twice that amount of time, 8.5 years. He came home in February of 1973 and retired from the Navy in 1980. He's done so much. He went back to school. He got a master's degree in operations research, got a law degree from George Washington University, received 2 honorary doctorates across the country, became Deputy Director of the Peace Corps, Deputy Administrator of the Veterans Administration. But most notably, among all those awards, except one I will mention here in a second, Ed has been presented the Silver Star, 2 Legions of Merit with the Combat V, 2 Bronze Stars with the Combat V, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and 2 Purple Hearts. He put his own company together, Conwall, and I'm just learning, it's where I met him also, was with the Conwall contractors at FAA. He has sold that business and has started a new business, so keeps right on plugging away with success. Last week, he and Tammy were invited to the West Coast, to Yorba Linda, to the Richard Nixon Museum and Library, where Ed was presented the first commendation of the American Hero Award from the Richard Nixon Yorba Linda Library. It was the very first to receive that. That was just a week ago. So the honors just keep coming forth. It's my sincere pleasure to present to you Commander Everett Alvarez.
very, very nice. Can everybody hear me? Yes, sir. Wonderful, wonderful. I have this little gizmo in my pocket and it stuck something on my tie. They said, don't worry, so it's fine. I'll just trust that everything's fine. First, let me begin by thanking everyone. I want to thank Ron, Chuck, and the Rotary for your invitation to be with you this evening. Thank you for the very gracious presentation. My wife, it certainly is appreciated. My navigator coming here, quite an experience. I thought I'd come up on the Maryland side and then cross. It was I got a little bit concerned when I saw this line I was following, and then I saw another blue line on the other side of the river going this way, and I kept wondering when I was going to cross over, and well, we made it in time, 6:31 p.m. But, you know, it's like landing aboard ship with electronic, hands off. You're supposed to take your hands off and trust